Leinster come from behind to beat Bath at the Aviva Stadium. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. Bath got off to a real flyer in this one. First, time really to get the hands of the ball. They're finding space out on the left, and it feels like they've decided to try and target Gary Ringrose, who's playing on the wing. He's a really good defender, but it's an unfamiliar position for him, and they make some decent ground out there, and then not long after, like first minute, they attack again. He goes marauding down that side. Ringrose kind of bit in a little bit, and he gets to within a couple of meters of the line. Bath then recycle, and Barbary crashes over. Smith converts for 7 points to 0. Really well worked try from Bath. Leinster then work it into the Bath 22, but again turned over, and Bath can clear. Leinster looking to get an edge, to the edge, moving it in their own half, but Bath's defence, they're coming up quick. They're trying that kind of umbrella style where it really does stop the ball going wide, because they're just coming up too quick for them. Cause a knock on, then Russell kicks it through, almost gets there to score Bath second, but they do have a 5-metre scrum. Off that scrum, then they run it. Russell, a really nice pullback, very brilliantly delayed pass to the Glanville, who goes over to score. Russell converts for 14 points to 0, and what a start from Bath there. And Russell just pulling the strings as well. The guy is absolute class. I know there's some people who don't like him, but I don't like, as just a rugby player. I just think the guy is absolutely fantastic. Love watching him play. From here then, Leinster worked the ball into 22. Bath making it slow ball for them though. Thought Bath compete really well at the breakdown. Leinster, we've seen the last few games actually for Leinster, where that quick ball, like the quick rock ball that they normally rely on, hasn't been there, and have kind of struggled. I thought they did better in this game in terms of just being able to cope with that slow ball, and also just the accuracy was so much better for them in attack as well. If a good carry from Barrett gets him on the front foot, then go right, and Keenan's inside ball puts Henshaw through a gap, and he powers over to finish. Prendergast drags the conversion across the face of the post. 14-5, but Leinster are on the board now. Then an up and under from Prendergast causes absolute chaos in the Bath 22, and they just about scramble the ball clear. Keenan then carries it back well, and Leinster go wide to Barrett. He gets within 5 meters of the line, decides to offload, and not really to anyone in particular, and ends up actually being to a Bath player. Bath recycle, but Leinster get over the ball and win a penalty. Finn Russell then has to go off for an HIA, which he did pass and come back on later. Leinster kick to the corner from the penalty. They pick and go from the line out, have penalty advantage, but then they move it. Barrett puts Henshaw through, and he grounds on the line. Prendergast lands a conversion, but we do have a TMO review for a possible knock-on by Slimani in the build-up, but it was backwards, so try stands. 14-12, Leinster right back in the game. Leinster then look to attack as they spread it from a line out, but Reid gets over the ball to win a penalty. Really good defence there from Bath. Then a tackle off the ball by Lawrence and Keenan allows Leinster to go up the line from the penalty into the 22. They move the ball, but Bath again aggressive in defence, and Barbary gets over the ball to win the penalty. Just super defence from Bath in this game as well. We know all about their attacking abilities, but I thought defence was really good in this, especially in that first half. Russell back on now. Bath then missed touch from a penalty, and it's the second time they've done it in this game, and just feel they've got to be better from stuff like that, in a game where they know they have to get something out of the game in order to give themselves a chance to qualify for the last 16. Leinster then work the ball to within a few meters of the line. They're picking and going. Porter and Deegan have a go before Van der Fleer knocks on at the back of a ruck, and it was right in the shadow of the post as well. before, though, we can even have the scrum, we have a TMO check for head on head between James Gibson Park and Obano. It's head on head. Referee says a high degree of danger because Obano could have been lower in the tackle, although, in fairness to him, he's fairly well bent at the hips. He's definitely could have got lower. There's no, I'm not disputing that, but I've seen a lot more upright players than him. But there is a sidestep from James Gibson Park, which mitigates it down from a red to a yellow. Overall, I think it was a fair call. You could, some people could argue maybe, just a penalty for that. But I think, I'm all for protecting the players. And, we have to remember probably about a year and a half ago, that would have been a red card. Because everything where it was just head on head contact, it was just red, no mitigation. Now, referees, I think, doing a good job of, not a manufacturing mitigation by any stretch of imagination, but taking mitigation into account. And I think overall a fair call, most of you who watched me before, I tried to not be biased towards Leinster as a Leinster fan. And honestly, if it had been the other way around, and a Leinster player, exact same situation, had it gone to the bin, I definitely wouldn't argue with the decision either. But as I said, I can see that there could be arguments for it just being a penalty at the same time. Obana then in the bin and James Gibson Park off for an HIA. He also passes his and comes back on later, but with a big shiner. Leinster then win a penalty at the scrum. Conan goes off the back of a scrum of a scrum. He's halted just short of the line. Van der Fleer picks and goes. He's stopped short. Then Conan goes again and he gets over the score. Prendergast converts for 19 points to 14. Bath then strike just before the break. Looked like, Leinster were going to be going in leading this one, but Bath penalty advantage because Joe McCarthy that is, was offside. Russell with a lovely pass out to Lawrence, skip pass out there and just got Lawrence on the outside of the defender, allowed him, to make good ground. Then some nice hands, offload to the Glanville, and he scores in the corner. Russell converts from out wide, and Bath leading on to break 21 points to 19. And they, that first half they couldn't do, any more to give themselves a real chance, to qualify. Russell then, it starts the second half, puts in a poor kick in the early minutes. That almost turns into a fantastic kick because he just kicked the ball straight down the middle long and looked like it was just going to trickle over the line, but actually hits the base of the post, which then forces Keenan into a scramble clearance, and his kick kind of bounces in front of the Glanville and goes out. But if the Glanville had have actually caught that, he might have just had a clear run straight into score. So, that's why I say it could have been, a fantastic kick. Leinster then come on the attack. They find space out wide, but Osborne's pass to Van der Fleer is kind of poor, hits him up around the shoulder, and, you feel like more accuracy is needed. Bath then runner from that scrum looking to exit, but Leinster managed to turn the ball over. Snyman then offloads to Prendergast in only the way he can, and then Prendergast, lovely pass, gets Ringrose free on the wing. He's stopped short, but then they come back inside and Snyman rides a tackle to stretch out and score just those elastic arms that he has, converted for 26 points to 21. Lovely hands in the build-up as well from backs and forwards that were involved there. And, Prendergast beginning to look more comfortable, I think, at this level as well. From here then, Prendergast looks to run a kick back, but this time, he's a confident boy, but gets himself isolated. Bath penalty, kick it to the corner. They attack off the top of the line out. Ringrose puts in a big hit on Barbary and dislodges the ball. Bath then get a free kick for an early engage at the scrum. So, they basically lost a decent attacking opportunity and then got one back. But then they lose it again because they decide they're going to tap the free kick, which is fair enough. But Ben Spencer actually forgets the most important thing, which is to tap the ball. So basic error loses them a very promising position, and Leinster then win a penalty from the resulting scrum. Leinster then win another scrum penalty. Obano was folding in. He gets a yellow card. It's a second, so that makes it a red. And I'm honestly not sure that the referee, he's obviously decided when they went down that Bath had been giving away a lot of scrum penalties, and whoever it was that infringed is getting a yellow card. But I'm not sure that he realised that the guy that he's going to give the yellow card to actually already has one. And I think if he had, he probably would have hesitated, about actually producing that second yellow card, because it's a horrible way for a guy to get sent off. If you had been more upright in the tackle, let's say on Gibson Park, maybe you could argue, well, that should have been a red card anyway. But for basically a yellow card, that's more or less, they're given to say to a team, listen, you've got to do better at the scrum. One of your boys is going to have 10 minutes to think about that, and the rest of you, you're on, you're on eggshells from now on. But sort it out. It genuinely don't think it's for sending a guy off. Letter of the law, obviously, it's got to be a red card because he's got a second yellow. And again, you could argue about the awarding of either yellow, but once the yellows are awarded, well, it's a red card. But yeah, I feel really sorry for Obano and for Bath, honestly, in that, because again, by the letter of the law, definite red card, but I don't think he deserved a red card. And that's kind of, and I'm not, you guys know I don't give out about referees. Don't think the referee did anything wrong. In terms of what he decided, I think they're all okay. They're fine. Again, with most decisions, you can make arguments one way or another, as to severity and etc. But I do generally think that he didn't realize who it was that he was given the second yellow card to until it would come out, and then what's he going to do? Right? He can't book somebody else, or give a yellow card to somebody else, because then we're looking at the replays and we're going, well, why did he give him a yellow card? And he can't say, well, because I didn't want to send the guy off, obviously. But yeah, I think just overall, it's just kind of an unfortunate situation. It definitely had an effect on Bath. I think that Leinster probably would have won the game from this point anyway, but I don't think they would have won it as comfortably as they did. But I think that any chance of Bath qualifying kind of went there with that. But, again, no shade on the referee. There's not really much you can do there, with that. Again, it's just, I think, just a very unfortunate situation. Leinster then, they come forward into the Bath 22. Prendergast carries well. They recycle, and Ringrose gets over to score. It's converted for 33 points to 21. The Glanville then gets caught behind his own line, kick through, and then Keenan gets there to the Glanville kind of I think knocked or kind of nudged it over the line, and then Keenan gets him. So it's a 5-meter scrum to Leinster. Then I thought it was very nice to see Russell Maloney went off at that stage, gets a big cheer, from the crowd at the Aviva. He was a great servant to Leinster, and it's just good to see him, doing well over there. He's one of those players where, I said, brilliant server for Leinster, always in kind of the URC team, and then, missing out on the big occasions and stuff like that. And you can see why he'd want to move, because he knew that the pecking order in Leinster and the pecking order for Ireland meant that, he wasn't going to get those big occasions, but maybe over at Bath he could. But great to see him back there as well. And then also good, he then had to come back on after a couple of minutes, as HIA cover. He gets another big cheer, and then he went off again, with about a couple of minutes left to go, and then gets a third big cheer. So nice to see him being recognised. From here, then Doris goes off the back of the scrum. Osborne with a good pickup because the ball kind of bounced like around his ankles. Then cross kick from Ross Byrne finds Barrett, but basically it was a terrible kick. Like he collects like a tackler at the same time as the kick. It was one of those kicks where it was accurate in terms of getting it to Barrett, but it basically rooted him to the spot where like he was right on the touchline, and the tackler just come in and push him into touch. Kick should have been more towards the the try line to let him run onto it and then get up there and compete in the air for it. Bat then struggling to kick the ball clear. Rossbourne puts up a Gary Owen. Keenan competes well. The ball goes loose. There's no knock on. It bounces nicely for James Gibson Park, who collects it and then has the pace to finish. Byrne adds the extras for 40 points to 21. Then Bayliss initially does really well to retrieve. Like there's a long kick from Leinster into their 22, and he gets there, retrieves the ball, then is able to avoid Ringrose's tackle into 22. But then Leinster just get their numbers, isolate him, and win a penalty. Leinster then go to the corner, but then they concede a penalty for obstruction at the line out, which I think Gary Ringrose is not going to be too happy with it, because he was actually he was the jumper in the line out, and he claimed the ball, but it was Snyman who conceded the penalty. And one of those ones where, jumper goes up, comes back down, and one of the lifters goes in behind, in this case Snyman, and causes obstruction penalty. And it would have been interesting to see how that played out, because I'm pretty sure that Ringrose wasn't the only back in that line out either. There was at least one more back in there, so they obviously had something up their sleeves. Would have been nice to see how that actually finished off for them if they had got the ball cleanly. Russell then kicks a really sweet 50-22, gives Bath an attacking opportunity, but then Snyman up to steal the line out, and Leinster win a penalty. Leinster then move it from a 5-minute line out, in the Bath 22, and Snyman gets over for his second try, converted by Byrne for 47-21, and that was our final score. Leinster did try and get another try towards the end, just to try and improve that points difference, given that it could be crucial in terms of whether they're going to be second or third seeds, but they knocked on in the end. Now we're going to have a look at the stats, and then we'll quickly talk about each of the teams. So let me pull them up here. So I'm going to start with tries. 7 tries to 3. Bath, they couldn't even really muster anything in attack to potentially get a bonus point out of the game in that second half, unfortunately for them. But yeah, Leinster just kind of piled it on in that second half, and I thought Leinster's attack was much better than we've seen them for most of the season. Let's talking about attack, meters made 603 to 183. So Leinster definitely were dominating before the red card, and just even more so afterwards. Carries 182 to 63, clean breaks 13 to 3, and defenders beating 40 to 17. That's just crazy numbers. Leinster almost as many clean breaks as Bath had defenders beaten, and it's just one of those things, right? Leinster's attack for pretty much the whole season has, other than flashes here and there, has looked off. Timing is off, handling not quite up there, and then today they weren't perfect, but geez, they were so much better than we've seen them for a lot of the season. Then offload 17 to 1, which is crazy. You wonder how many of those were Snyman after he come on. Even though he's only on for 30 minutes, the guy had a big impact. Pass then 206 to 71, possession 65 to 35, and territory 71 to 29. Again, skewed certainly in that second half. Closer in the first half, but I think Leinster probably edged it there anyway. Defence then, tackles made 61 to 159. Leinster at 76%, which again with that blitz defence and then the scramble in behind and the fact as well that Ringrose is kind of out of position on the wing. 76 isn't bad. They'd obviously still want to get up towards the 80%, but 69% from Bath is very poor. And again, at times they had very aggressive defence, and a lot of it was all about just stop Leinster from getting the ball to width where there was space, and they did that well. Especially in the first half, but then Leinster then just had too many threats in that second half, and it kind of told in the end. Turnovers 1 then, 4 for Leinster, 11 for Bath, so Bath winning that one. And again, that was a lot of that was to do with that aggressive defence, getting in there, disrupting the Leinster rucks, and also any team that's seen getting that amount of turnovers against Leinster, it's not about competing at every ruck. It's about recognising which rucks are best to compete at, getting in there and winning your penalty or your turnover or whatever it is. On to set piece then, lineouts, 18 won by Leinster and 11 for Bath. So Leinster gone at 86% to 85. Leinster's lineout much improved. Still not there, like they still struggled with a couple of their lineouts, but overall, yeah, I think, it's big step forward compared to the way it was before. Lineout steals, it says 0-0, but I definitely saw Snyman actually steal a lineout with one hand. So I think that stat is probably wrong. Scrums won then at 10-3. Leinster at 91% to 75. And Leinster definitely, in the ascendancy in the scrum, it actually led to that yellow card because they were, so dominant in the scrum, and Bath were really struggling. Kicking then, kicks from hand 21 to 19. Kick meters, the number of the beasts, 666 for Leinster. The beasts obviously being Snyman, and then 594 for Bath. And it's always, you always see that, with Finn Russell is, he's excellent passer. He loves a bit of a snipe himself, but also kicking game is always on point, and the guy always gets good meters for his teams. So even though they struggled with ball in hand in terms of really losing the meters battle to Leinster, very close on the kicks. Retained kicks then at 2-1, and then we have a look at the breakdown. So 100 rucks won to 44, no rucks lost to 1, and Leinster at 95%. So even though Bath were getting in there and disrupting, Leinster for the most part were securing the ball, but it's certainly, like, if we had stats on ruck speed, it was definitely more than 2 seconds, probably 3 point something seconds, I'd say, up to kind of 3.5 seconds average per ruck, and then 86% for Bath. Turnovers 1, again, it's 4-11. I don't know why they have this stat again, because they're obviously not splitting it out, because the numbers are always the same, which means that, it's turnovers 1 and rucks and mauls, this one, but turnovers 1 is always the same numbers. So whoever's getting the stats isn't I think doing it properly. Maul total then, same thing here, like 5 mauls to 1, right? And maul meters, amazingly, 5 meters to 1. Again, that maul meter on the official site is wrong. I can guarantee that, because every time it's basically the number of mauls times 1 meter. It never changes. And then 100% success for mauls. And then discipline. 8 penalties conceded by Leinster, decent. You always aim for that single figures. 16 for Bath, way too many penalties, and obviously 1 yellow card and 1 red card for them as well. Okay, so talking about the teams then briefly, Leinster much improved. Again, I think they still would have won the game fairly handily. Probably not by the scoreline that they did, but I think would have been comfortable winning the game even without the red card. You look at as well some of the players that were sitting up in the stands, not even on the bench today as well. And it feels like I talked about it earlier on in the season that there's something was brewing at Leinster, but I didn't know whether it was going to be that they were going to crash and burn, or potentially this season could be, finally where they get their hands on a trophy, whether it's this competition or the URC. Now, there's a long way to go still, but it's feeling like Leinster have made a big improvement. But we saw last year, they had a big improvement for that quarterfinal against La Rochelle, but weren't able to then carry that momentum through to actually lift the trophy in the end. But still, I think if you're a Leinster fan, you've got to be happier with this performance than a lot of the other ones. And again, line out went better. The scrum is looking like a real weapon. Slimani for me has been the signing of the season for Leinster. Snyman, he's box office. Barrett is just an absolute special player, but I think Slimani for me has had the most impact in terms of Leinster, because think of it, like last year, like Leinster's scrum, even with the Ireland's front row, were not a dominant scrum, and in the big games, they were the ones who would concede the crucial penalties at scrums and stuff like that. There would be times when they got the nudge on, but it feels like now it's a more kind of attacking scrum that has the potential to get you penalties rather than getting, whereas last year I think it was just a case of they come up against teams that had a weaker scrum, got a bit of a nudge, whereas now it feels like they can mix it with any of the other scrums in this competition. So that's great. Line out certainly much improved, but still has to be worked on, because we've seen before with Leinster or Ireland or whoever that fixture scrum 1 week is, or fixture line out 1 week is fine, but if it goes to crap the next week again, it doesn't matter. It's got to be a permanent thing. So we haven't seen whether that is a permanent fix or not. But certainly, you can't complain about it. This week, I felt like as well, Keenan coming back was a huge plus for them. And he looked better. Like I talked about after he came back from the Olympics, that he looked a bit off. He looked much better in this one. So if that's what him being out injured for what was it, 3 months gets us, I think the injury was worth it, because the guy just looks like he's back to that level again. So whatever they were doing, while he couldn't actually train with the team or wherever to get him conditioned back up, seems to have worked in terms of just getting back into the 15th game. Also, a word for Luke McGrath as well. Came on for, a sizable period when Gibson Park was off for his HIA as well, and kept things going there too. Centres both were excellent. Prendergast, again, he's looking more comfortable at this level, which is, only going to be a positive for Leinster and obviously in time for Ireland as well. Ross Byrne as well, when he come on, looked so much better. Like when he come on last week, the guy just looked like he was completely out of form. But this week, that's going to be a huge boost to his confidence as well. Then you got the likes of like McCarthy coming on a hooker as well. Who's in there in the mix, and that's good to see, because we know Sheehan's on his way back, but we've got players like that, coming in and being able to produce for us as well. And then we got the likes of, earlier on as well in the pool stages, Clarkson coming in too. So and then Osborne, that guy seems to get better and better. Like, if you think back to last year, like Frawley seemed to be like the standout guy in terms of the young backs that were coming through, but he's definitely been overtaken by both Prendergast and Osborne this season. Frawley, falling back a little bit, but that's the thing with Leinster, I think, in terms of the their academy, is that there's enough talent in there that if you're not producing, there's someone to come in and step in and produce instead. I think that's a big difference from Leinster because I talked about it. I made a video about it last year about how the Leinster team was stale, and now it doesn't feel that way anymore. It feels like players, are getting their chances, they're taking their chances, and they're not performing now. It feels like, they're more willing to make changes than they were last year, where it was a case of, well, these players are the players that go off to play for Ireland, so obviously they have to be the starters whenever the big games come around. But they've mixed, they've made changes, rested players, etc., given players chances so much better this season than they did last season. Doesn't mean that they're going to actually get anywhere in the end, but overall, yeah, I'm very happy, positive performance for Leinster. There's still definitely things to work on. Again, that line out, still not perfect. The defence out wide, yes, they had Ringrose out there, but it's not like it's the first time that Leinster have been caught, out wide, especially in the tram lines, in terms of teams who've been able to make easy meters against them. So that's definitely something to work on. But yeah, overall, I think very positive. For Bath then, first half, definitely positive for them. I still feel, really bad for them, the fact that they did get that red card. But again, no shade on the referee for it. I think it was just, again, unfortunate circumstance that it happened. But, again, I don't think it decided the game, but it certainly meant that, Bath weren't any kind of a force really after that in the second half. But, started really well. But from there, a couple of things. One is that, obviously Leinster worked their way back in front, and it looked like Leinster were going to go in at half time, but Bath did so well to get themselves back down there, and they got themselves to try then to put them in front at the break. And I think that if, like, second half they had got a little bit more momentum, maybe, because what we've seen in the past is when Leinster lose, it's that period right between half time and about 60 minutes where if you can get yourself in front, then Leinster, when it's a tight game, tend to not score that many points in the last quarter of the game. So if Bath had been able to maintain that lead, or be within like a score or something, it might have had a different kind of outcome in terms of how close they got in the end. But if Leinster are able to open up a gap the way they did today in that kind of period, then in the last 20 minutes, as heads goes down on the opposition and the game opens up a little bit more, then they've just got the skills, especially the way they were today. Attack was so much more fluid that they're able to pile on the points, and that's what they did. But Bath, they struggled a lot, especially in their opening games in this competition. Ended up with only one win out of 4, and they're going to drop down into the Challenge Cup from here. Now, that's a competition that, if they take it seriously, they could go far in as well, and they could end up, kind of doing the Sharks really, and if concentrate on it. And even though didn't do too well in this competition, they're going well in the Premiership. They're like top of the Premiership, and if they can couple that and keep kind of feeding off the two competitions with that in the Challenge Cup, they could get themselves to semi-final, final, or lift that trophy at the end of the season as well. And who knows, they might even get themselves a double the way they've gone, other than playing in this competition. But I think first half performance they can be proud of. Second half performance, they dropped down, and you have to remember that yes, the red card had an effect on the game, but they were under a lot of pressure at the time, and that's why they ended up with the yellow card too. It wasn't just a case of the yellow card came out of the blue. They conceded a number of scrum penalties, then they conceded 2 back-to-back, and the referee obviously just decided, well, that's enough. Somebody's getting a yellow card, and unfortunately it ended up being the guy who'd already had a yellow card from the first half. But again, Finn Russell, really, impressive player. I thought, again, he had a great game there. And, there's not so much you can do, honestly. No matter how brilliant you are, if your team doesn't have enough of the ball in the right areas of the pitch, you're not going to spark too much. I thought Glanville did well, taking his 2 tries too. And yeah, like you can see this Matt team that they're one of those teams where if they can kind of build on like some of the performances towards obviously the last 2 performances that they put in this competition, then you could see them maybe getting to kind of round of 16 quarterfinals, that kind of thing next year. And then that's what it's all about, right? It's very rare that a team kind of can't get out of the pool to they're in the final or they're winning the competition, right? It's for most teams, it's a journey where you've got to consistently be getting into knockout stages. Your players get used to it. And you get to the point where you're pretty much expecting to qualify, and that actually helps you then in the pool stages because you've been there, you've done that, you know what you need to do in the pools, and like just something simple for them even from this year. Like they sent the weakened team to Benetton. They thought they could get away with it, and they didn't, and Benetton ended up pipping them to qualification. So just stuff like that, learning year to year, that there's certain risks you can take, but that kind of risk, if they'd maybe if they'd maybe like started off, get a win and then have that there. But they lost first up to La Rochelle and then went away and lost. So when you just lost at home, for me at least, it doesn't make sense then to just say, well, that was the plan anyway, so we'll go with that. But they're a good team to watch. I wish them well in the Premiership and in the Challenge Cup, but not too well in the Challenge Cup because obviously Connacht are the number 1 seeds in there, so I want them to do well in that too. But yeah, overall I thought it was an enjoyable game. Let me know what you think down in the comments.